Hello YouTube, this is Mr. Surplus Nut, bringing a video request that was requested by this guy that goes by the name of Ivor Sanko. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. If not, excuse me, but it was a really interested request on the proper way of sighting in a scope or a red dot, and especially on an AK-47. Now, keep in mind, the proper procedure on sighting in a scope has nothing to do with the rifle that you're using. Okay, if you are sighting in a variable power scope or a fixed power scope, a red dot, it's basically going to be the same. Okay, so that's what we're going to try to cover on this videos that I'm going to make. Hopefully I can try to cover everything in one part. If not, I'll try to do a second part to this just to be able to help him out. And I also want to show you guys one technique on once you have, let's say you have a scope. For instance, I got here, for example, like this Bushnell scope. It's a variable scope. It's the Bushnell Banner. The power on it is 6x24. Pretty decent scope. I mean, obviously after you go past, like I will say, about maybe 12, 14, depending on the light and all that, it'll start getting a little bit blurry on you. This is not like one of their high-end scopes from Bushnell, but it's a decent scope, and it does have a variable. It has the end bell here is where you adjust it for your yardage. Okay, if you're shooting at 100 yards, 50, 75, whatever. Well, I'm using this for an example because let's say you buy a scope and you put it on a rifle and you go head out to the range, you sight in your scope and you use it for a while, and then you want to go ahead and change the scope for another rifle, to put it on another rifle. Then again, you go ahead, you take it off, and you put it on that rifle, and then you take it out to the range, and from the last time that you adjusted your elevation and your windage, you might go from there, and you might be able to adjust that scope again. Now, depending on how many MOAs you have on your elevation and windage, meaning how much adjustments, how many clicks you have. Okay, obviously for your elevation will be up and down, and your windage from side to side, left to right, depending on how much clicks you have or adjustment travel on that internals of the scope. You might be able to get it from the first rifle that you had the scope sighted in for, put it on the second rifle, and you might have enough clicks where you might adjust it to that rifle. But how about if you're going to take it off that second rifle and install it on your third rifle or fourth rifle? Okay, most likely you're going to, what people call, you're going to be running out of clicks. This is like the terminology that a lot of people use. Oh, well, you know what? I'm running out of clicks on my scope. Well, that is because after, let's say, depending on the adjustability of the internals of the scope, remember, the difference between a 1-inch tube and a 30-inch tube, 30-inch millimeter tube, or 1-inch tube, is going to be that most likely, and for all the times, on the thicker tube, okay, the internal, there's more space for the mechanism on your elevation and your windage. So the internal adjustments on a 30 millimeter tube is going to be way more than a 1-inch millimeter tube. So you might have more clicks on your elevation and your windage from a 30 millimeter tube versus the 1-inch. That's most definitely. Okay, so basically the main advantage on a 30 millimeter tube to the 1-inch tube on a scope is that for sure you're gonna have more adjustments on your windage and elevation, and you're also gonna have more light capability where you know, the scope's gonna be able to gather more light through the end bell piece here, transfer it through the tube all the way to your eyepiece here. Okay, so that's basically the main. I mean, there might be, you know, someone might come out with more corrections. Remember, in YouTube, you have a lot of correction guys, okay, that they go around finding out what you're trying to review or the video you're trying to make, and they always want to come out and correct you. So, you know, correction guys, excuse me if I'm probably missing something out, but I'm just trying to put this out by knowledge of what I've gathered through the years of being into this hobby or whatever you want to call it. And also the knockdown guys. I call them knockdown guys because they go around knocking people's on their videos and whatever, and when you go to their channel they have nothing going on or not even one video uploaded. I don't know how YouTube lets these people put up a channel. But anyways, I think I'm getting off the subject here and my minutes are running out, so we're gonna probably have to do another part to this. But anyways, going back to the main thing on a scope, okay, being that this is a video on how to adjust and sight in a scope properly, we need to cover the main issues that relates to a scope so you guys can understand how everything works. Okay, so yes, the main two, again, I'm not gonna get into the other issues of why, you know, a 30 millimeter tube is better than a 1-inch tube. I'm not gonna get into that. The main two, okay, reasons or advantages that a 30 millimeter tube has over 1-inch is that, first of all, you're going to have more adjustments on your windage and your elevation on the scope, and the thicker tube is going to allow more light to be transferred through the end bell of the scope through the tube to the eyepiece, okay, which is where everything happens, and you can actually see a clear picture through your scope. So again, when you're dealing with a 1-inch versus the 30-inch scope, okay, this is a 1-inch that I'm holding here, the Bushnell Banner. That is the main reason on the 30 millimeter tube versus the 1-inch. More adjustments on the turrets and also more light gathering capabilities. I'm gonna catch you guys on the second part to this, and I'll be right back, guys.